Good evening and welcome to the Angry Cast. This is a rant. And here we are playing SimCity. Why are we doing that for this particular rant? Because I kind of miss playing SimCity. I kind of miss the game, the simulation, the city, the power of being like a god above a town and plotting out those things. I really wanted to play City Skyline. I can't play it on this computer. Um, which sucks. I wish I have it for like the console or whatever. But in any case, why are we doing that? Because this was an old game. This is like 5 years old. This is as old as the channel. This was one of the first things outside of Minecraft I did for the channel. But I thought it was a great vehicle for me to talk about anything. And I like to get back into this vlogging idea, this going through and just, having random discussions. I hate doing it on a game where I'm supposed to be focusing on that game, like 7 Days to Die or Fallout Shelter especially. I really do not do well with Fallout Shelter. I kind of go off on a tangent when I should be actually focusing on playing that game and accomplishing things in those games. So I thought it'd be a great idea to get back to the idea of just having a rant, just a random discussion, just things flying off my head with you, the audience, playing a game in the background that I really don't care about, showcasing. Something fun might happen while we're playing. I don't know. I just need content to fill the gaps between the start of the video and the start of the audio and the end of the audio, and SimCity is going to do that for me. But there, I kind of wanted to. Something got in my head. A thought spiral got into my head, and I went down a rabbit hole with it, and it all sort of spawned around me driving through the countryside of the area I live in, and I like to tend. I kind of grew up in a place what I kind of call. I called it Subrural, but it's actually Subrural, I guess you want to call it. It's right across, right across between living in like a suburb but near a rural area, and where I grew up was a very big, huge rural area. There were a lot of farms around the area, and I grew up like across the street from a farm when my parents built a house when I turned 10. Up until then, we had lived in a house that was on like a main street in my town, and it was on a hillside. It was a very, very busy street, but when I was, old enough, or when I was 10, and my brother and my sister, and we were getting to kind of cramped in this 2-3 bedroom house. We moved into a nicer, bigger house that has now been around for about 30 some years, and it still looks good for being as little as it is. But the furniture is still, my goodness, the furniture. Some of the furniture from when I was a kid, from like the 80s, the early 80s, that blooming pattern of the flowers on the couch. I could find a picture and show it to you, but I think you kind of get the idea. But in any case, where I grew up after that point was right across the street from like a farm. And man, I kind of liked having that quiet, that it just, go out I could sit on the roof right outside my bedroom window at night and just look up at the stars. Very crisp and clean and clear and not a lot of noise. You could see off in the distance, sitting over top of a hillside, the sunset, like, where there was farmland up there, and it was just very, pastoral and everything else. And I really wanted to get away from all that for some reason, and I had these thoughts of stardom when I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a famous movie star, director, screenwriter, and live in some huge big Malibu mansion or something like out of Billy Madison, with a pool in the background I could do jet skis on. But, reality kind of set in my mid-20s, after I was in college. And I realized that I was never going to have that because I just wasn't going to have that type of lifestyle. I wasn't made for being a famous leading man in Hollywood. So I kind of left myself to bring it down a couple of notches into the lower atmosphere and into being tethered to the ground. And I opted for a modest 3-bedroom home with a garage and driveway and somewhat of a backyard, fenced-in backyard in southwestern Pennsylvania. And the realities are that home ownership does have its ups and downs, as I've seen. I mean, I've had to replace a hot water tank since I moved into this house. I'm probably going to be replacing that as well. I've replaced the roof within the last 2 years. I've now had to replace the furnace and the AC within the last couple of months because everything just crapped out at the beginning of the year, and it's been kind of hard with being what I am. But I had great hopes that buying this house, that I wasn't going to like spend my entire life here, that I was going to live in it for you know, the first few years of my life as a father and as a family man, and then I was going to, build my dream home. I thought that again, I went kind of like up into the stratosphere of hopes and dreams, and I thought I was going to build this beautiful house in the middle of a big field with lots of acreage, and it was going to have a nice barn in the back that I could have like an office in, and then like this a game room in the, like a straight out of the '80s game room in the floor, the bottom, in the ground floor of this barn, and then have an office upstairs for me to do stuff like this. I thought I was gonna make it big somehow in the job that I had, or the jobs that I could have, and be able to build this huge big house with a movie theater types surround sound area in the basement, man cave, a big huge man cave, and a big great room that floor to ceiling windows, but for a big chimney and everything else, big fireplace. And boy, you just you have those types of things, and you probably can get to them if you really really work hard, but apparently I just wasn't cut out for that either. I don't know what to say about that other than maybe one day. I mean, I have to understand something, that my family, my father, and my parents, they didn't build their home that they live in now until they were in their 40s, and I'm at that point too, but I still have a mortgage to pay off. They didn't have a mortgage when they were in their 40s. The house that they had when they bought it was very old already, and they didn't have I think it was like $1,000, I think they spent for their house, and they didn't have a mortgage to have to deal. They could not have to worry about that. They could just worry about taxes, and they could worry about repairs, and they can worry about insurance, and they can just worry about the family. And I've got all of those plus the other things as well, as I still have probably less than half, actually less than a third of my mortgage still to pay off, as far as I've been living here. But possibility is that maybe I shouldn't build that dream home, because the one thing that bothers me, and like I said, as I drove around the area going to some place, I don't know where, I realized that we are quickly running out of land. Noticing driving home from places from where I used to work like years ago, there was a lot of forest and farmland out in that area, and they're now housing developments, and it's really becoming sickening to me to see so many great big fields and just forests that are around here being turned into like these really cookie cutter housing developments that are just so horrible, with as Megan would call it, oh my god, 16-inch contractor tile and crappy, there's no windows on the sides of the house, and they're all so up close together, and they all look the same, and how do you know which one's yours? And it's true, we have just really destroyed the environment with these cookie cutter plots and suburbs that we've created. It's not like the 50s and 60s growing up, like the suburbs from back then, like the planned communities that they had there. It's not the same thing, but we haven't gotten any better. It's like we realized that we were doing it wrong then, and we just never got any better at it. We just made them more grand and more expensive, and they still have the same drawbacks that they had back then. But maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I shouldn't add to the problem of building on the land that that's the one thing we don't make anymore. It's one of the things that we, as a civilization, as a species, that we don't understand, is that we don't have more land that we can always get. We just can't keep creating areas for us to live in. We're going to run out, and then what do we do then? And and we live into this area, and this time of our civilization, that we are slowly having an issue where the people that were the generations before us are outliving the lifespan that they were supposedly going to have back then, and we're adding to the population tremendously now. So we're going to just continue to add people, and not not recycle, but we're not losing anybody as we add more people. So it's like the problem is that the lifespan from back in the day, back in the 40s and 50s, was maybe about 60, 70 years old. Now we're getting closer to 80s and 90s being the lifespan, and we're continuing to having more and more children. And as people age and they get older, because we've engineered ourselves to live longer because of therapy and drugs and surgeries and stuff like that, we are just creating this big, huge population issue. And one of the things I've kind of realized was I thought, like, man, where did that start? It started with World War II and the baby boomer generation. My parents, the baby boomers are a group of people that were born right after World War II, because either whether them going into war or coming home from war, there was a, a massive movement to get it on, and a lot of kids were born. There's a population explosion right after. They called it the baby boom generation because there were so many that were born at that time. And these are my parents, and these are also the people that ended up fighting in Vietnam. And it kind of makes me, this is that thought spiral I went down. I'm saying, I was driving around looking at these houses, knowing that they're not there anymore, that these farmlands are not there anymore, and where are we going to move into because the population is exploding, and then realizing that, my goodness, the life expectancy of that population is a group of people that created a huge impact on the population itself. So it's not like, a very small generation of people are now living longer. It's the one where we had one of the biggest additions to our population, the baby boomer generation. And these people are living into their 90s, into their hundreds, and, they're our family. And, I don't want to see anything happen to these people, but it's kind of interesting that that is the generation that is now living the longest so far. And it's impacting us later on. But then I also wondered that, this generation, like, had we not had the baby boomer generation, would there have been such a huge rush to go into Vietnam? And I don't want to get into like a political battle about it, but think about this. When you're a leader or a prime minister or president or premier or whatever, and you think about committing your resources, your physical, organic resources to fighting something, do you consider, hey, do I have a plentiful amount of soldiers, of warm bodies to throw at the problem? Because we kind of have to, you have to kind of do that. You can't fight a war without some people. We haven't figured that out yet. But the idea being that, we had this baby boom generation that are now in their 20s, late teens, late 18, 19, early 20s, that were born at like 1946 and are now old enough to go fight in a war. And we have a draft, and we, pretty much put everybody into the service at that age. And they went off and fought this war. It's like, was that a good idea? Have we not had such a population explosion after World War II, would we have made the same decisions to go in full force into a war in another country that may or may not have been a good idea, which we know now probably wasn't. History will tell the tale of that one way or the other, but still. But that's, like I said, that's where I get my brain goes down into these other avenues and these other, as I'm driving around and thinking about these things. But it's, I don't want to add to that problem, though. I don't want to add to the problem of having this no place to, for animals to graze and to grow crops and just to have, get that sweet, sweet oxygen that we love so much, and the green and the color and everything else. What we need in this world is a little bit more, less sterile of an environment. You need those pastures, and we need the, people with allergies and hay fever won't think so, but I believe that we need to have those things. They're pleasant to look at. They're pleasant to experience, I think. So, maybe I don't want to build that dream house. No. What do I really want, though? I still want a home other than where I live now eventually, with more things that I want in it. But I kind of want it in a place where I'm not around many people. And, as I talk about these things about populations and everybody crowded together and so many things butted up against each other, I'm talking about getting out into the middle of nowhere and then having nobody around me. Maybe have like 10 to 15 acres, but I want to retain that. I want to not have that space and then build upon it, expand all over the top of it. I just want to have a small, modest living domicile in the middle of it, and then just have surrounding it a nice swath of land to just call my own and just to watch, and enjoy. So maybe I want to do like a fixer-upper. Maybe I want to do, I've been watching a lot of HGTV, and my goodness, shiplap and gray. That's what it all is anymore. But still, the idea of having the ability to go and find a good house that has a really good bones. It doesn't matter how old it is. Find a really good house with good bones and do, be smart about it and be be respectful of architecture and put in, update it to make it look nice and feel comfortable and everything, but not be completely crazy and whacked out about it. That would be a good idea. Sustainability. I want a place, I want to be able to have a farm. I want to be able to have like a garden and actually grow crops. I can't grow things here. I just don't have the green thumb, or I don't have the land. I mean, I'm in a very tight community with a bunch of trees around me, and it sucks up all the moisture from the ground, and I can't really grow a lot of things. I try to grow them in pots and stuff like that, but I'm not very good. But I would have time to really think about it. Man, my father, my goodness, my father could create a garden that was insane, and he had the area to do it. And it's odd that he did, because he was, he has this garden. Well, he hasn't really, do anything with it now, but this garden was right across. We had like a second driveway that went to a separate two-car garage, like was basically his workshop area. And on the other side of this driveway from where his garden was is like 4 or 5 of these big tall pine trees, and I would think that the acidity of those pine trees would really screw up the soil, but apparently it didn't. Man could grow. I mean, the man was a farmer. He could grow anything. And I feel so bad that I did not inherit that gene, or have failed my genetics of not being able to be a really good farmer. But those are just weird things that I think about. Those are the weird things that I drive around and look at this, the landscape, and think, man, that's where I'd love to build a house, right in the middle of all that fields. And then, like, whoa, there's going to be a housing development here in 5 years. And my goodness, because we don't have any, place to put people anymore because of World War II. And like, what the hell am I doing? It's now an hour later. I'm somewhere else, and I've had this entire conversation in my head. And then I, save it all in my brain to benefit the channel and to annoy you with it. That's just the way I think. It truly is sickness that I've got going on there. But I find that it is fun to think about those things, and think about what type of home I would love to have when eventually, like when I grow up, and when I get older, where I can retire to. I live alone right now, sort of like, for 80% of the time. And I worry that they're gonna find me tripped over a cat upside down with my pants down around my ankles, because I just I was trying to get to the bathroom or something like that. That's my greatest fear, that I'm gonna be found in a very, very horrible place, dead. And the first thing it says is, as I'm croaking, like, please delete my browser history, those kind of goofy jokes, but whatever. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, maybe we'll get back into playing SimCity. I don't know, who knows. But that's all I got for tonight. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you coming by and enjoying the videos as you are. And please, if you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment below on what your thoughts are. Keep it clean, keep it constructive, and you have a good night. Bye-bye.